I started doing TM one in 1974, and
Yeah.
then in uh, about I don't know maybe 15 years ago, I was really getting into the Jain community. There's a huge Jain community in New Jersey. I think it's the largest Jain community outside of India is in New Jersey, and I because I'm a vegan and they're very much into vegetarianism, and so the vegan thing attracted them, and they actually had me speak. I gave the opening keynote address at the Jaina convention in Los Angeles in 2009, and and I had earlier than that been studying Jain meditation at the in New Jersey, with a couple of Jain nuns who were here from India,
Hmm.
and it's a different. I mean, it's not mantra meditation. It's basically perception of breath, perception of other things. I mean, it's a perception. It's a perceptual meditation, and I studied that, and meditation is a big part of my life. Always has been, or it has been since I've been,
Well,
you know.
I always, yeah, with regards to the Jains, don't they have like a very similar kind of attitude with regards like compassion and loving kindness to all beings? I thought that was kind of their baseline.
Well, it is and it isn't. I mean,
Yeah.
himsa or violence is not just doing violence or thinking violence, but it's actually any sort of passionate state of the soul, which where one is engaging in um, mental or physical activities, which are committing one to the material world. It's sort of a weird. I mean, Jains have a very Jain. I find Jainism as a set of doctrines to be really quite interesting intellectually, because they don't have a concept of a creator God. There's no creator God in Jainism. It's like soul and matter have always existed,
Uh,
and they have always existed as intertwined, and that the goal is to sort of disentangle oneself from the material world. The only way one can do that is by achieving a state of ahimsa, which is not just not doing violence or thinking violence, but where one is in a state of complete equanimity. I guess that's the best way to put it, complete equanimity. And and so I started getting really interested in it. um and when they asked me to speak at the 2009 convention, I said, yeah, but I'm going to basically say y'all are messing up because you're not vegans. And they said fine, and that's what I did, and it started actually quite a discussion within the North American Jain community.
right.
And I'm not going to say that they're all vegans now, but I am going to say that the discussion about veganism is now very much alive in the Jain community in this country, and in Canada, um, and um, and there's much more of a recognition that dairy products are problematic and need to be looked at the same way that meat is. I mean, I think part of the problem has been because because Jainism grew up in India alongside Hinduism, and Hindus are, they believe, or at least appear to believe, that there's some ethical obligation to continue to drink milk because it's a way of telling Krishna that you think he's a good guy. Um, that they are, you know, the whole dairy thing has really, they consume dairy. And I remember about 5 or 6 years ago, I offered to pay the Jain convention. Um, I offered to pay for all of the non-dairy. I offered to buy plant milks for their chai tea and all the ice cream that they wanted that was, non-dairy stuff.
Hmm.
And I had, even at the time, I don't know if they make it anymore, but at the time there there was a company that was making mango, mango non-dairy ice cream thing. And and I thought that and it was going to cost a lot of money because 4 or 5 thousand people go to these things, and so I I said I'll pay for it all, but it's got to be vegan.
Right.
They nope, 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 nope. And so I said fine. I didn't go, and I water fasted for the 4 days,
Mm.
and and but yeah, that's sort of my Jane story. But anyway, so what would you like to ask me?
The initial question I have for you, Gary, is do you really see any difference between animal rights and the Buddhist teachings of love and compassion for all beings?
Um, in a sense, no, I don't, not at all. I mean, the problem is that there are animal rights people who aren't vegan, and there are lots of Buddhists who aren't vegan,
Yeah.
and so I don't know what that. I mean, the problem is I don't know what that ends up meaning. If it doesn't translate into veganism, I don't know what it means, and and uh, and I a couple years ago got some flack because I posted something about the Dalai Lama, who was doing a cooking show in Australia, and they were like he was eating some animal products, and putting aside that he's on a cooking show in Australia, which seemed to me to be a bit odd. I thought that the consumption of animal products was a really bad idea,
Uh-huh.
and and so yeah, I mean I guess part of what I see that is common to what I understand what I understand animal rights is, and to the extent I know something about Buddhism, but I would never say I know a lot more about Jainism.
Hmm.
But uh, what is common to these ideas, these traditions, is the idea of kinship with others.
Right.
Because you see, I don't think if you don't feel the kinship, and that's not an intellectual thing, it's an emotional disposition.
Yeah.
It's a spiritual disposition. If you don't have that orientation, if you don't feel kinship towards others, I can't convince you. Logic alone can't convince you that
Right.
you ought to be a vegan or that you ought to buy into animal rights. I mean, logic gets you only so far. You need something else, and what the something else is you can describe it in a variety of different ways, but it's a sort of an emotional or spiritual disposition towards seeing the other as in the same struggle that you're in and feeling kinship with that being. And and I don't think if you can't feel that, um I don't really see how you can come to much of an interesting conclusion. And I wrote a whole essay on this. I could send it to you if you want, about logic and the limits of logic and how you need something else, which you can call love, or you can call it compassion, or you can call it, I don't know what the hell you want to call it, but it doesn't really matter what you call it. It's an emotional spiritual disposition,
Right.
and if you don't have it, then I think logic is unlikely to get you very far.
The thing that initially kicked it off for me, are you familiar with um, Roshi Philip Kapleau?
Sure, I
Yeah.
know. Yeah,
So the thing that really kicked it off for me was his book, To Cherish All Life,
yeah,
um, which I'm sure you're probably familiar with.
yeah. I have it in this room somewhere.
Yeah. So, but it's, I think one of the problems that I have, and that I think many people who are vegan do have, is they want to, um, just as you're doing, they want to promote this lifestyle because for the obvious reasons. I mean, there's a number of reasons involved. Particularly from my position, it's it's the love and compassion for all beings. And would you throw your cat into the frying pan? This kind of a thing. So it's like, and reading some of your stuff, it's like, I'm just wondering, as you say, you talk to most people, and the majority of people, they believe in basically kindness towards animals, right? And yet,
Right.
as you say, they turn around and they go and have a hamburger or whatever. So, what is it, Gary? Is it for many people just a habit that they've grown up with?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of a bunch of things. It's a habit. It's it's the idea that, like, when you think about your life, many people, have images of, like, having Thanksgiving dinner with their grandmother, or Christmas, holidays with people they love. And it becomes rather difficult to sort of think about those as events of violence, and as and with the people who participate. It's sort of hard to think of your grandmother as a bad person. It's hard to think of your family as bad people. And so, in a sense, it's 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 habit, it's tradition, it's the relentless um, propaganda that we've been exposed to since we were children. That, if you don't eat animals, you're going to be weak and unhealthy and blah blah blah. Um, and 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 so I think we live in a society, a material society, which doesn't encourage deep thinking. It
Right.
doesn't encourage thinking really on any level.
Yeah.
And it's a reaction. It's a constant sort of, you know, desire to accumulate shit. We've got to keep on accumulating stuff. And materialism is a real sort of metaphysical commitment to, like, what personhood is. It's personhood is connected with material objects and with wealth.
Right.
And and so you really can't, you know, you need to break free of that, and it's very hard. It's not easy to do that, because these influences are not insignificant. Indeed, they're life shaping. And um and so, I mean, how do you talk to people about, like, how do I motivate my law students to sort of want to do well, and sort of yet encourage them to not be materialistic, because most of them are in law school because they want to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
And it's no longer the case. It's not like it was when I was in law school in the late 70s, where um, there were a chunk of people who wanted to go out and change the world. Those people basically don't exist anymore, because there are no real opportunities for them anymore. There's no government money for pro bono stuff, and so young people aren't going to law schools because they want to change the world. They're going to law schools because they want to make a lot of money. And
Yeah.
so it's this constant thing we're fighting against, this relentless materialism that we're fighting against. That's getting worse. That's getting much worse, and it's happened as a result of political shifts, where you know the political forces have very deliberately excised those aspects of our, have gone after in those aspects of our society. um, don't fund them anymore, don't encourage them anymore. And um, and so I don't know. I don't know what the thing I know is this: most of the people I meet care about animals. I mean, there's a group of people who don't give a shit. They don't care. You can talk to them all you want. They don't care.
Yeah.
Um, and you're never going to get them to care.
Hmm.
But um, most people do care. Most people have had loving relationships with non-human animals in their lives.
Yeah.
And the question becomes, why is it that they feel that, why don't they see the inconsistency? And the answer is, I've got no idea. All I can do is try to sort of get them to see the inconsistency and recognize that what they want to do is what I think they ought to do. That it's not a question of my trying to convince them to do it. It's a question of my getting them to see it's what they want as well. That it's consistent with what they believe as well. And and I think I do it as well as anybody does it. But it's not easy, because it's constantly fighting against and I've got a class in a little while, and they'll, I can't tell yet. I will definitely get, I got 20 kids. It's a seminar. I'll probably get, 6 or 7 of those people will be vegan by the end of the semester.
Mhm.
Um, uh, the rest of them will think about it, and some of them will change it along the way, and some of them won't. But you're always fighting against this, well, and it's not helped by the animal people, because a lot of the animal people think nothing about saying, if you're not a vegan, you're a Nazi. And
Yeah,
I try to tell these people, the moment you sort of call someone a Nazi,
yeah,
that's the end.
yeah, yeah.
That's the end. It's not gonna go any further.
Well,
And
the other aspects of that too, Gary, from my perspective, is for instance, I used to have PETA on my Facebook, and I had to cut it off, man, because uh, I'm empathetic, and suddenly I get this vision, this terrible vision that PETA's put up there about animal abuse, and it totally destroys me. I mean, that's all I can think about for the next 3 days. I don't like that approach at all. I think that's bullshit. But it like, what's your thoughts on that?
well, I used to, in my teaching, I used to show them slaughterhouse videos and things like that. And I stopped doing that probably 20 years ago, because first of all, it upset some people. But secondly, I don't really want what I want them to focus on is the morality, that even if the animal's treated really well, it's still wrong to kill the animal, that we shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah,
And that showing them, I used to take students every year to this horrible event. It was called the Higgins Pigeon Shoot. They used to shoot 6, 7,000 birds in a morning, and it was dreadful. It was unbelievably violent, horrible. And I used to take kids to that, and because I used to represent people who would get arrested for civil disobedience, and and I mean, I have a problem with PETA, but it's a sort of a different problem. I mean, I think PETA is basically a business, and it sells whatever product it thinks it can sell to you. So if you're a vegan, they'll tell you veganism is great. If you're not a vegan, they'll tell you that you know slaughterhouses designed by Temple Grandin are great. And so I mean, I went into Whole Foods the other day, and there was a big box of Bell and Evans humane, and it said it on the box, Bell and Evans humanely raised chicken or whatever.
oh,
And
yeah,
and Ingrid Newkirk has been a promoter of Bell and Evans humane chicken, and I put side by side a picture of the box in Whole Foods and a picture of Ingrid's, because I know these people well. Anna and I were involved with PETA when PETA was about 10 people big. I mean, I've known Ingrid since 1981,
right,
82. I met Ingrid in fall of 82. And as a matter of fact, I met Ingrid in fall of 82. I was a vegetarian. I had a conversation with her in October, 40 years ago, this coming month, and I
right,
became a vegan immediately, overnight.
right.
And 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 so I have I had for a number of years an emotional attachment to them, but I really couldn't get into I couldn't get into the sexist imagery that they were always promoting, or the welfarism. But as far as the violent imagery is concerned, I think violent imagery, in my experience, doesn't really work. It gets people upset. It may cause them for a couple of days to change their behavior, but you need to sort of work on. People need to understand it doesn't really matter how we treat them. What the problem is we're bringing beings into existence for the sole purpose of killing them, and there's something really wrong about that. However well you treat them, there's something really wrong with that,
Yeah,
and that's so I stopped showing them. I don't show them violent stuff anymore, and I don't allow it on my page.
mhm.
I don't post violent imagery on my page. I don't allow other people to post it on my page. And so that's how I feel about that. I mean, I think Peter's got a lot of problems. I think the problem is the animal movement is a business, and they've got to keep the donor. I mean, these are organizations that bring in a tremendous amount of money, and I mean a tremendous amount of money. I mean, PETA is a monster. It brings in millions and millions of dollars, and in order to do that, in order to sell that big, you got to sell out, and that's the problem. And so I don't have a whole lot of time for them, and I actually don't. I actually don't have I don't have anything to do with any of the animal groups. I think they're all really problematic. I think this is a simple idea in many ways, um, and we need to. I just finished writing. There's a thing that's going to come out next week. I think it's called the Montreal Declaration on Animal Exploitation or something, and it's got like 500 academics have signed it. And so I was asked to sign it. I can't sign it because it's just like it's nonsense. And I've just written an explanation about why I can't sign it. But 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 I think these animal groups are tremendously problematic and corrupt. And my view is that I just do what I do, and I approach it the way I do. I've been writing. This is my 40th year of doing this stuff.
Yeah.
And
Well,
uh,
so Gary, is it all is getting down to the bottom line? Is it all about education? Like instead of hitting carnivores over the head with statistics or images or whatever, what path is more likely to be successful in opening people's minds and
not nonviolent advocacy, nonviolent education. I mean, that's the only thing that's the only thing that's worked. This is not like human slavery, where you had a chunk of people who were um, opposed to slavery. I mean, slavery was never ubiquitously accepted. It was there was a large number of people who objected to it, and so there was always tension about slavery. Animal exploitation is part of everybody's life. It's ubiquitous. It's ubiquitous, and so you don't solve a problem like that. One of the things that this Montreal Declaration mentions is that we should advocate the closure of slaughterhouses. And I said, what the hell sense does that make? Slaughterhouses are there because there's demand. You can close 25 slaughterhouses today, and if the demand persists, 25 new ones will open up, or 25 existing ones will expand production capacity. It's stupid, and we're dealing with something that 98, and also like I remember once giving a talk in Canada. This woman stood up and she said, "I'm a member of the North American Animal Liberation Front or whatever."
yeah.
And she said, I don't understand. She said, "You're opposed to violence." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "I'm violently opposed to violence." And she said, um, "If a vivisector is using 60 dogs a year, you don't think it's morally justifiable to use physical violence against him?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Then how do you call yourself an animal rights person?" I said, "Let me ask you a question." I said, "Are you vegan?" She said, "Yes." I said, "Is your mother a vegan?" She said, "No." What's my mother got to do with it? I said, "Just answer my question. Is your mother vegan?" She said, "No." She said she doesn't eat beef. And I said, "Okay, that's interesting." I said, "What's she eat?" "She eats chicken, she eats fish." I said, "She eats chicken and fish once a week?" "Oh yeah, more than once a week." I said, "Your mother is responsible for more than 60 chicken and fish deaths every year. Is it okay to use violence against your mother?" And she said, "Well, that's a different issue." I said, "No, it's not. It's exactly." I said, "The problem is, what sense does it make to talk about using violence to solve a problem in a society where 98% of the people are involved in participating in the violence?" It just doesn't make any sense. I said, "I don't like violence anyway." I said, "But violence in this context is not only immoral, but incredibly unsound intellectually, because you can't possibly change the society. You don't shift this paradigm by violence. You shift this paradigm by nonviolent education. And I believe we could do that. I mean, I do that every day of my life, and it works. Look, man, I'm almost 70. I wouldn't waste my life. Um, I have a job. I get paid no matter what.
Yeah.
As long as I walk in and I'm not, I mean, as long as I walk in and stand in front of the class, nobody says anything.
Right.
I have tenure. I can never get fired. Um, and and I wouldn't do this if I didn't think it works, but I know it works. I mean, I get emails. I got 3 emails today, and I haven't even I've been very, very busy, and I
Right.
haven't been paying much attention, but I got 3 emails today from people who heard lectures I gave at various times. One about 6 years ago. The
Okay.
one guy wrote to me, and he said, "When I first heard you talk, you really pissed me off.
Mm.
I didn't know why you pissed me off, but you did, and he got me very angry. But the more I've been thinking about what you said, and now I've read some stuff you've written, and now I've become vegan." And I see my view is I'll get up every day and keep doing this if I get one of those emails. It's like one of those emails to me, man. We moved into this house. I changed the oven. I changed the refrigerator. There's never been an animal product in this house. We've been living here for 22 years. There's never been an animal product in this house. We had people, we had friends, longtime friends come and stay.
Yeah.
And they went out because they're from this area. They went out with some people in this area, and they came back, and she's a vegetarian, but she's not a vegan.
Right.
And she had some cheese stuff, and she put it in my refrigerator. I said, "Get that out of my refrigerator." And she said, "Well, but wait a minute, aren't you being a little bit?" I said, "No." I said, "That to me represents moral evil. I don't want it in my house."
Yeah.
I really do believe that what we are doing with animals represents. Have you ever been in the slaughterhouse?
Believe it or not, Gary, when I was in primary school in Vancouver, they used to take us on little trips. And one time they took us to the Canada Packet meat processing plant. And Gary, that was when I was a little kid. I can still smell that place.
Yeah, yeah,
They were shoving pigs down into a thing that was screaming, and
yep.
they dropped them down into the gas chamber and came up and they dumped them out in front of us. Well, and they were still, of course, So yeah, I have.
Well, see, when I'm in those sorts of situations, I really sort of perceive that I am surrounded by evil. I believe in moral evil. I mean, I don't believe in God in a God. I don't believe in that sort of stuff. But I do believe that there is good and there is evil.
Cheers. Thank Gary so much.
Sure. Take care, Phil. Take care. Bye bye.